It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Friday edition of the show. Thanks so much, everybody, for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. And also thank you to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast. It is Friday, and it's Friday before the Canada Day long weekend that's happening on Monday. Hopefully you got some big plans, fireworks and barbecue, friends and family, and probably some farming and ranching too will be mixed in with that, I am sure. And as we heard yesterday on the Farmer Rapid Fire, some good crops out there. There are some challenges in different parts of the country. Most of it revolves around moisture and maybe erring more on the too much of it in some parts, but things are looking fairly decent. So today we got a RealAg Issues Panel, and we're going to talk to Kelvin Heppner and Lyndsey Smith of RealAgriculture to break down the biggest issues of the week. Of course, we'll have the reaction to last night's debate in the U.S. between Trump and Biden, so we'll hear about what they think about that and how that maybe is running in parallel to what we're seeing in Canada right now. As well, we're going to talk about Cereals Canada and their proposed gate project. We're actually going to hear from Dean Dias, who's the CEO of Cereals Canada, here before the panel. What is exactly the plan, as they sent out a press release yesterday about the project? Why $100 million? What is it? What is this building going to do? What are the special things, and what's the intention? What's the strategy? As grower dollars will obviously be a component of that $100 million to fund the project, along with industry partners and I'm sure government as well. So I think they phrased it as a capital campaign that they're now in the middle of, or beginning to try to find those funds. So we're going to hear from Dean Dias today about that, along with a whole bunch of issues in the RealAg Issues panel. Hey, if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. We want your thoughts, your opinions, how you feel about what's happening right now in the world of agriculture, issues that we're discussing here on the show, or something else that wasn't covered. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find Real Agriculture across all the different social media platforms. You're also very, very welcome to call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. And highly encourage you over this long weekend to go to realagriculture.com and check out all of the great content we've been producing throughout the week. There was a ton of agronomic content the past 2 weeks. Okay, timely stuff for you to stay on top of the issues and really nurse this crop through the growing season. Eastern, Western Canada, some great stuff, as well as content very pertinent to the U.S. listener as well. So check that out, realagriculture.com. Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back, we've got Dean Dias, the CEO of Cereals Canada, right after this.
Choose Viatude fungicide and unleash best-in-class sclerotinia protection in canola and premium protection against white mold in soybeans. Viatude contains a powerful premix of Onmira Active and Prothioconazole. This unique combo delivers high-performance disease control, crop safety, mix compatibility, resistance management, and advanced mobility for excellent coverage and superior plant protection. Choose Viatude fungicide for stronger, more vigorous crops.
I get to spend every day talking to farmers in the ag industry through RealAgriculture.com and RealAg Radio. But nothing is more fun than speaking to an audience live and in person. If you're planning an ag event, book a Real Agriculture speaker to make it a successful and memorable experience. Email shaney@realagriculture.com and you can book myself or any other Real Ag personality to speak at your event. Bring your audience all the fun, insight, and energy of Real Agriculture.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com, and what an opportunity! Oh my gosh! You think you can't grow better wheat? You are absolutely wrong. We're going to show you how to strive for those record wheat yields that they get in the UK and in New Zealand. You can grow 150 bushel wheat. I'll show you how.
Catch WheatPete's Word every Wednesday on RealAgriculture.com or download the podcast on iTunes or Spotify. As mentioned earlier, there was a lot of news coming out of Cereals Canada this week, and one of the pieces of that is the GATE project, a $100 million facility that would really play into potentially building the brand of Canadian cereals with end-use customers around the world. I refer to it as, I guess, a supercharged SIGI, so to speak. There's a lot of controversy around this announcement. There was things that were leaked prior to the announcement being made. Some of the groups, like the wheat growers, very upset about it. But there's other groups that are saying, you know what, this is something we need to think about and look at on a cost-share basis between growers and government and the industry. Kelvin Heppner of RealAgriculture had a chance to chat with, on Thursday, Dean Dias of Cereals Canada to get more information on the project.
There's been discussion, I think, going back at least 2 decades about the construction of a center in Winnipeg to bring together, to serve as a hub for Canada's grain industry and value chain. We've reported here on Real Agriculture that Cereals Canada was working on a proposal, and today they have announced their vision for the Global Agriculture Technology Exchange, or GATE. And joining us to discuss this announcement, we're pleased to have Dean Dias, CEO of Cereals Canada. It's good to catch up, Dean, and I know you have your board of directors in town, so thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Kelvin. I'm glad to be here.
So why don't you fill us in your words? What is the Global Agriculture Technology Exchange? Why is it needed, and what would it look like in the future?
So Kelvin, as you mentioned, this conversation has been going around for couple of decades. But, you know, the thought right now is we are coming to an end of our lease as of 2027. And the current facility just does not meet our current needs and future needs. And the vision of GATE came about to be a space where we can put our best foot forward, thinking about what we can do now and into the future to continue to build global demand for Canadian cereals. And while doing so, can we have others participating and working collaboratively with us to drive this forward for the next 50 years or so? So the vision right now is to be in a facility that is going to drive future growth for the Canadian industry.
What type of work would happen at this facility?
So we have been, evaluating along with our members, looking and having discussions about what we need now and into the future. And we know that current customers have certain requirements which has to be translated into value. And Canadian crops, as you know, are known for quality. And it's not just any quality, it's quality that actually is functional for different end products. And if Canadian wheat is being used as an improver wheat, how do we support them better? So this new facility is going to, help us do some of what we do now, but also what the requirements of the future are. What are the new food trends? Where is, the new food end products going into? We want to evaluate that, and we want to be, ready to support that for our industry.
Okay. So the number $100 million has been discussed in at least, I'd say, on background over the last number of weeks as word about these plans was being discussed in the industry. That number was included in the press release this morning, a preliminary cost estimate of around $100 million. I think it sounds like a lot to some people when they hear that number. What would that price tag include, Dean?
So yes, we've engaged with, engineers and infrastructure experts to figure out what we really need. And we've done our current needs assessment and done some functional programming based on that. And yes, $100 million is where the current vision is landing up with. But we continue to review that, right? However, that $100 million is everything that we need, right? It includes the land cost. It includes basic infrastructure, but then it also includes specific requirements, Kelvin, in the sense that if you are putting in something to do with a flour mill, flour, requires certain type of codes. You need certain type of concrete because the mill shakes. You need certain type of electrical codes, right? So, and this number also includes equipment, and I would say equipment that, some equipment will move with us from here, and some equipment that we currently do not have, and we want to provide better support for crops like oats and work on couscous and so on. Those are all the things that is part of that vision.
Okay. Who is driving this? Is this being driven by the need to move out of the current facility at the Grain Commission building, Dean, or is there also a drive from members in terms of your stakeholders and people around the board table in terms of needing or seeing catching this vision? Where is the motivation for this big project coming from?
Well, the motivation started some years ago because we've been challenged in the current space because this building has served us well for the last 50 years, but it also has a lot of limitations, and it does not meet the current needs we have and the future needs we want. And this is where the journey started, right? So it is driven by our current situation.
Okay. You mentioned the price tag includes the land. We've seen some documents where it's proposed on a piece of land that is currently, I believe, a parking lot east of the Fairmont Hotel. And I'm also told that it's owned by the Richardson family. Is that where you're looking to have this new cereals, the gate facility built?
So, Kelvin, we've analyzed a lot of space in downtown Winnipeg. That has been one of the options. There's other options as well at the table. We are currently looking at what do we need as a vision for Cereals Canada, right? Can we meet that? Can we finalize our functional programming? Once we know that, we can move into the discussion about what land is available for us to develop that.
Okay, so the actual physical site hasn't been nailed down yet. You're not down to only one spot.
Yeah.
Okay. What about, of course, the next question I think is also funding. What are you anticipating in terms of a model for raising the funds to have this facility built?
The model is we are launching a capital campaign, right? We want everybody in the ag industry and the broader Canadians to be proud of this facility and this vision that is going to drive future growth for Canadian agriculture. So the capital campaign is going to focus on, getting donorships and funds through agribusinesses, industry associations, individuals and corporations. And we're also working to get, federal, provincial and city, support to make this happen.
Do you have targets in terms of how much would potentially come from each? I know there's been talk about a third from members, a third from one level of government, and a third from another level of government. Is that still something that you're aiming for, or do you see more of it coming from the members of Cereals Canada?
Right now we are still working through that model.
Okay.
The thought is, we want to make sure that, everybody that is part of the value chain and everybody who benefits has a way to support it. And those things, the ratios will evolve as we finalize our plans.
Okay. You mentioned, Dean, that this is also part of an overall process of reevaluating, and I'm sure this is something that happens continually, but has there been a focus recently in terms of what is the purpose and mandate of Cereals Canada going forward to justify this level of investment in bricks and mortar?
So Kelvin, we do analysis like this on a regular basis. We are always on, strategic review cycles every 3 to 5 years and so on. And we review what we need, right? And it's good governance to do that. All I can say is I'm just coming out of 2 days of board meetings, and our board members are aligned and are, supportive of the vision of GATE.
Are all the board members on side, or is that a board decision that was made in the board meeting? Can you provide any detail on that?
So the board members are, entire value chains, right? So we have farmer members, we have exporters and grain handlers, we have life science companies and processors. And it was everybody who's at the board table is supportive of the GATE vision.
Okay. We do know that there is some upheaval in terms of membership and companies giving some withdrawal notices, which we understand is a 2-year process, so not something that takes effect immediately, and those decisions could be reconsidered. What can you tell us about that from your perspective, and how does that impact the potential for the vision for GATE going forward in terms of funding and getting this project across closer to the finish line?
So we do not comment on membership renewals because of member confidentiality and their privacy. We are unique in that sense, Kelvin, that we have a 2-year with like a process that's to make sure that we have financial stability as an organization, right? Members will, review their membership in different associations, including ours, on a regular basis. And they have to do their own due diligence as well. And they might have multiple reasons to review whether they want to be at certain associations, and that's their prerogative to do that, and we encourage that. The 2-year notices doesn't mean that they will ultimately leave. It could also mean that they are just starting their review process and they've provided a notice, and that in 2 years, they'll ultimately decide to stay, right? We encourage to have conversations with our members, and we continue those conversations. And as I mentioned, the funding of the GATE vision is through a capital campaign.
So above and beyond your regular membership contributions, is that what you're implying?
That's correct.
Okay. What would the impact be, though, or what would have to change at Cereals Canada if you do have a significant number of grain company members depart? Is that something that you have to factor into your conversations now about the future of the organization and what it looks like?
Well, as a value chain member-driven organization, that is going to be strategic discussions, right? And we work for our members, and the members will be the ones that will drive what we do and what we provide tomorrow.
That is Dean Dias, CEO of Cereals Canada. Want your feedback. What do you think about the GATE project as outlined by Dean? Send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. We'll be right back on RealAg Radio with the RealAg Issues Panel right after this.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today. Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola. It's summertime, and you've got a lot of important decisions to make when it comes to your corn crop. Let the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com help guide you through those big decisions with input from leading experts in the field. If it's spray timing, disease identification, or any other field issue, the Corn School's got you covered. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Pride Seeds.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio. It's now time for the RealAg Issues Panel here on this Friday. Lots of issues to talk about. Our panel today, first up, Lyndsey Smith out of Ottawa, Ontario. Lyndsey, how are we doing?
I am doing so well. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing, it's Friday. I'm doing great. Fantastic. Yeah. Long weekend.
It's been a busy week. It's been a good week. And exactly that. We've got Canada Day on Monday. It's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Also joining us is Kelvin Heppner, coming out of fantastic, friendly Manitoba. Kelvin, how are you?
Doing well here, Shaun. Woke up to another half inch of rain this morning, and so it's wet outside again, or still. We've had some fungicide go on this week, but it's plains will be buzzing again next week if it dries up.
Well, tell you what, I'm still waiting for summer. I don't know where it is, but like we're still in this like hoodie weather here. Bunny hugs for those of you in Manitoba. Or sorry,
Saskatchewan. We're hoodies here.
Yeah.
It's the first day of summer holidays for our kids here today. And it woke up to rain and cold temperatures in the teens Celsius here. It doesn't feel like summer holidays.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of Saskatchewan, like Saskatoon getting pumped today with rain. It's there's like this fine line. You go from like where you beg for rain and you don't think it's ever going to rain again, and then this year it's been plentiful, right? And so a lot of growers are like, okay, Mother Nature, you heard us. We finally have answered what we've been asking for the past 3-4 years. Can you let us finish spraying? It'd be really nice. Just let us finish, please, please, please. So speaking of crop conditions, Lyndsey, we've got some news out of Ontario. The government's extending some deadlines on crop insurance related to soybean planting dates.
Yes, that's right. So this is the second announcement, second of 3 announcements we had this week on some insurance changes. But this is specifically for soybean planting being extended, so with coverage to July 2nd, but only for specific counties. So this is 8 different counties. So this is Brant, Chatham-Kent, Essex, Elgin, Haldimand, Middlesex, Niagara, and Norfolk counties now have until July 2nd to get those soybeans in the ground with full coverage. So it's not a huge extension, obviously. It's only a couple days, but it does give farmers in those areas at least a chance of covering that crop because conditions in those counties have just been terrible. So for some, I'm going to guess these would be replants if they are going in. Certainly, we've seen some of that in Norfolk County already. And for some, it might actually be the first go. It does mean, though, potentially, I don't think in these areas, but maybe, and let us know if it's you, it could be double crop beans. I don't know. We'll see. But definitely just incredibly wet. There's been torrential downpours. There's so heavy crusting on some of these clays and just really poor planting conditions. So yeah, extended to July 2nd, but only for those 8 counties. So please, everyone, make sure you contact Agricor if you're still planting beans and want coverage because it's important. It's only for those 8 counties.
Yeah, and Kelvin, for Western Canada, I guess the one way to describe what we have is we got a pretty good potential of a crop this year right now across a pretty broad base of all of the Western Canadian acres.
Yeah, we're complaining personally about the lack of heat, but the wheat and canola, the cereal crops and canola are doing well, I think, in a lot of areas, especially with the moisture that we've seen. They don't mind the cooler temperatures in terms of their growth right now as they're coming into flower or wheat is heading in our area now. And so, yeah, there's potential there. Of course, it is behind in a lot of cases, and that's where I guess there's some concern what the end of the season looks like. We'll need an open fall. We've had fairly good luck or been fortunate in that side of things for quite a few years now in a good part of the prairies. But yeah, we'll see what the end of the season looks like if we can bring this all home the way it's looking right now at this potential.
Any surprises for you in the StatsCan June 27th acreage report?
Well, you're putting me on the spot here in terms of the actual numbers. I know canola, I think, was a little bit higher than expected. I'm not sure if that is a real surprise. So no, I'd say I didn't see a whole lot of surprises yesterday.
Yeah, I have the numbers here. 22 mil for canola, which is up 2.9%. Chickpeas, though, up 13.5%. Versus March estimates, and way up over 2023. I don't know. I don't think there's anything super surprising in here. Maybe just barley being down over 10%, but I don't know. Looking at the numbers, it looks pretty in line with what our averages are year over year, I think, for Western Canada.
Yeah, I didn't think there was a lot. I think that if you were to compare to where I thought we were going to be on canola going back to, like, say, December, I would say I think we're a little bit higher than what I sort of had thought, but there didn't seem to be a big reaction. Durham up actually 5.5% over 23, with all the moisture that we have had is going to be interesting in how that durum crop really works out. For sure, spring wheat down 2.8% compared to last year at 18.94 million acres. So yeah, not a lot of surprises. So we kind of a boring kind of outcome from the report, but
boring is good.
Well, yeah, it is.
Maybe
I guess we look for some excitement. I mean, you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe shock one of those acreages. Maybe shock us to the downside a little bit. Maybe it gives us a little reason for that market to go up. That would be nice. There wasn't a lot here to suggest that the markets maybe have the fundamental side wrong at this point. Now, of course, where the yields end up is going to be another question. We did knock on wood on yesterday's show when Chris Allen from Edmonton said that his agronomist told him he's got a generational crop out in the field. We were like, ooh, which is great to hear. Like, we have this weird reaction to things. Like when it's bad, we talk about how excessively bad it is, and when we do have some good things happening, then we're like, "Oh, don't talk about it. Like, it's not that good. Things are going to go wrong." Like we have this kind of weird reaction to. I appreciate farmers telling us what's really happening out there, either bad or good. I think it's important. Okay, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we want to get the reaction of the panel to Dean Dias's interview that he did with Kelvin on the Cereals Canada Gate project. We've also got a reaction to what we saw last night, the debate. It was something. We'll get the panelist reaction to all that when we come back. You're listening to RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM.
If you only listen to RealAg Radio, you only get half the picture. For greater insight into the issues that affect farming, tune in to RealAgriculture.com. Crops, livestock, machinery, farm management, and the markets, even food and travel. Real Agriculture Online digs deeper into the topics that affect the way you work and live. So get connected today. Read, watch, and listen to the people who know at RealAgriculture.com.
Infuse some energy into your next corporate event, customer meeting, or conference with RealAg Radio, Canada's national agriculture radio show. Create a unique experience at your next event with host Shaun Haney, broadcasting RealAg Radio live on Sirius XM, featuring exciting guests, captivating interviews, and the latest news from the agriculture community. Contact advertising at realagriculture.com or call 587-787-1795 to book your on location with RealAg Radio today.
I don't know if last night was like a made-for-TV event or how you describe it, but we did have the U.S. election debate last night between former President Trump and current President Joe Biden. And I have thoughts, but Kelvin, did you watch it, and what did you think?
I caught the last few minutes, and then I watched maybe 20 minutes of post-debate coverage on a couple different channels. And yeah, I don't know. It was pretty disheartening. And I'd say that in terms of candidate performance, Trump was Trump. He did okay by Trump terms, stuff that could definitely be challenged, but the normal stuff that there is to critique around him, it was there. But it was just, I'd say, normal Trump. Biden, though, certainly looked frail and struggled on delivery, and certainly I think there's good reason for panic in the Democrat Party in terms of what who their candidate will be and whether there's time now. I think there's a lot of work going into figuring out how the candidate could potentially be changed before the election in fall. And yeah, I'm not sure I have much to add. There's so many other people commenting on this, but that's kind of at a high level what my perspective on it yesterday.
Lyndsey, who do you think's panicking more? The Trudeau Liberals after losing the by-election in St. Paul's and Toronto, or the Democrats after watching Joe Biden's performance last night in the debate?
Oh, that is such a great question. Honestly, I think that, given the scale of the U.S. versus Canada, I think that I'm going to give the Democrats at least they at least I think are aware and fully aware of just how big of an issue Joe Biden's age and potential cognitive function is. I would say on the Liberal Trudeau camp, maybe we're starting to see some cracks in that armor of, being self-aware enough to say that this was a loss. So I'll leave it at that, that maybe the Democrats are a little more honest with themselves. To Kelvin's point, I didn't watch, I made a point not to watch it. I figured I would just get the highlights or lowlights as they were. I would just like to say that, I'm interested to see how this plays out, and that I think, I think most people would agree that it definitely Trump's night to win, or maybe at least that it was Joe Biden who lost. And what happens now? Is there time? There is time. And I think there is a process that is laid out in the rules as to how, Joe Biden could step down and they could have another nominee in his place well in time. There's still lots of time before the election. Not a lot, but enough. My thing is, though, I would like to start this conversation with, who would you have replace Joe Biden? If I may be host for a moment, Kelvin, I'll ask you first. I'm going to share mine at the end. Kelvin, who would you have replace?
I don't know the cast of characters well enough to make a suggestion. I would say that almost anybody right now would be able to function at a higher level than what it looked like the sitting president was functioning yesterday.
So you got to remember that it was the Biden camp that pushed for this debate to happen.
Right?
Yeah.
Which almost makes you, so if it was that bad last night, what's it like actually behind closed doors on a regular day? Since he's been resting up at Camp David for 5 days, preparing
he had a
for
cold,
the debate.
though, apparently, right?
Well, I don't care if he had a cold or not. The cold doesn't make you have this
function through a cold every day.
Yeah, every day. When
it almost makes you wonder if this was like, okay, like the only way that we're going to get him to actually step down is for him to actually go through this. You almost got to wonder
but that could be.
It could be. Yeah.
I don't want to come up with conspiracy theories, but I gotta wonder. It didn't seem very strategic at all to have him actually do that last night. The favorites are going to be Michigan Governor Whitmer, governor out of Michigan, and of course Governor Newsom out of California will be the names you're probably going to hear the most about. So anyway,
Lyndsey, who are you thinking?
Yeah, also from California, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. There. I put it out there. I'm just saying we want a throwdown. We want like great TV. Just do it, guys. Do it for Canada.
Former Calgary Stampeder
to run for president.
Yeah.
See, how great would this be? Okay, sorry, America. That's just. It fits that like America loves actors. I mean, they like people. So like
celebrity, the name recognition.
He's an entrepreneur. Like he fits. He ticks the boxes, guys.
He is an entrepreneur, all right. That dude is doing a lot of things. Yeah,
this is what I'm saying. Yeah. Anyway. Okay.
Well, in true WWE fashion, what we would do is we'd have a tag team match: the Rock and Biden versus Trump and Rock. And at some point, there would be like a double cross where the Rock would turn, go against face, and he would maybe clothesline by
there'd be a lot of chairs ruined. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And it would make great TV. This is what I'm saying.
I love a good wrestling double cross.
Yeah.
It's a good plot. Okay. And by the way, we talked about the St. Paul's by-election last week, and the Conservatives did win that. That is like the significance of that should not be underemphasized. That is like the Liberals winning in the middle of rural Saskatchewan or in southern Alberta. Like that is in the heart of Liberal country in downtown Toronto, everybody. So that we talked about this last week and what would happen. People around Prime Minister Trudeau still sticking by him.
Okay, whoa.
There's starting to be a few, like Lyndsey said, there's starting to be a few more cracks. The Teflon is starting to come off. More than it ever has.
Well, it should.
After any other previous things where you'd think it should have happened too. But
like Catherine McKenna has come out and said, maybe it's time for a new leader.
Not in cabinet, though.
Not anymore. I know.
Francois Philippe Champagne, the industry minister, yesterday when asked about it, said the leader is the leader, and he just kept repeating that phrase. The leader is the leader. He wouldn't say whether yes or no, whether he still supported or whether he thought he should step down. He just kept saying the leader is the leader. We need to focus on what Canadians want, kind of thing. Well, I think a lot of Canadians would like to.
I think the Canadians have made it very clear.
Think about the parallels here between Canada and the U.S. Like this is like there's very close parallels. Okay. Mm-hmm. The worst thing to happen for the Conservatives is a new breath of fresh air on the Liberal side, right? For Pierre Poilievre, his best path to be Prime Minister is to face Prime Minister Trudeau in the election, not some sort of fresh face that has a fresh take. It's the same thing in the U.S. Do you think the Trump side, they may have some real regret this morning in terms of how poorly Biden performed? Because if there's a new candidate, the polls show Trump versus somebody else is not good for Trump. Trump versus Biden is a path to him for the White House. Some say about a 65% chance of winning this election in November. So there's very close parallels. It's very fascinating if you're following the political side of the equation. Hey, Kelvin, we played earlier the Dean Dias interview that you did, CEO of Cereals Canada. I guess what I didn't hear from Dean is I heard like strategy and vision, but I didn't get a real strong sense of, okay, but like the why, the what, like what are we actually talking about here? I think there's a lot of confusion out there that people are hearing $100 million gate project and we're just building a head office. Clearly it's more than that, but I think there needs to more details conveyed on the tangible why here. Is that, am I being overly critical, or what are your thoughts? What's your reaction to the interview?
On a objective basis, I tried to stay objective in the interview, but my personal opinion is that yes, the sales pitch has come late to the discussion after weeks of critics voicing concern and opposition to this project. And like you said, not much in terms of details and fleshing out that why. I was expecting more of a sales pitch and a story as to why this $100 million project is needed. So that's something that I'm expecting they're going to be rolling out in the coming weeks and months. But at the same time, it's already come late to the discussion, and there's a lot of people questioning why in Winnipeg, why not somewhere else in Western Canada? Why does it need to be downtown Winnipeg? Why do we need such an investment in bricks and mortar in this day and age, and that type of thing? He did clearly state that these funds will be raised through a separate capital campaign, because we did touch on it a bit in the interview, and we've covered it at RealAgriculture.com this week. There's some turmoil in the organization, and it would have been interesting to be in that board meeting the last 2 days in Winnipeg as grain company members. Several of them have filed withdrawal notice, which is a 2-year process, so they can reconsider. They may reconsider at the end of that 2-year timeline. But there's some turmoil, some turbulent waters that Dean is navigating Cereals Canada through at this time. And so I'm guessing that was maybe overshadowing the tone from that meeting may have come into the interview a little bit too, as he was just out of that board meeting when we talked to him yesterday. But it's and of course the CEO of the organization is going to always try to calm the waters and emphasize that we're going to make it through this kind of thing. And I think that's what he was trying to convey. When at the same time, you talk to other people, many industry sources that we've talked to this week have shared insight into what's happening at Cereals Canada, and things are definitely not all okay right now. Yeah.
And what I have detected, and I'm going by audience members, okay, and texts and emails and calls that we've got this week. The grower is there's a lot of opinions. This isn't like, hey, growers are all for this or growers are against this. It's a real mixed bag, Lyndsey, and I think this is going to make the winter meeting season very fascinating at some of these meetings, as Cereals Canada provides more detail and rolls out this plan and tries to get grower organizations, the grassroots, not just the boards, but the grassroots, on side with the growers' portion of this financial commitment.
Well, and that will be key, is because, as Kelvin outlined, this capital campaign has different components to it of, government money and industry money and farmer money that's supposed to go into it. And so, to Kelvin's point again, coming out of that meeting, maybe it wasn't the best sales pitch that we could have seen for the why of this bricks and mortar. And that maybe is what we will see over the course of this winter as, a presentation gets put together and presented to farmers and where farmers land on this. We know certainly that, the wheat growers have come out very much against this. But depending on what the value proposition is to farmers and how much they value the role of Cereals Canada, the work that Cereals Canada does, the best, if they can communicate that and say, we want to continue doing this over the next, 10 years, and this is how it delivers value for the farmer. If they can tell that story, if they can present that to farmers, you can get farmers on side. Absolutely. I think that there are some very key questions that have to be answered. And is, really, do we have to go from the ground up, bricks and mortar? Like, there's the real estate market right now, and we've talked about this before, isn't exactly tight. There's a lot out there that could potentially be considered, probably at a much reduced rate versus where they are. But I think there's also decent questions on, what does Cereals Canada do? Where do they deliver value for their membership? And, what is the role going forward? Because, of course, if you're going to invest this kind of money, you're going to drum it up, you're going to build this, you're going to get all this stuff. That means you're locked in. That is what you are committed to do for the next while. And to me, that's not the message that I necessarily heard or got excited about as to what the future of what this organization does is really laid out. And whether or not you can achieve that vision without putting all that money into stuff versus your money into energy, into other things. So we will see. We will see how convincing that argument is as the rounds get made over the conference season, for sure.
Hey, we've got Shaun, more coming up here on the RealAg Issues panel. We'll be right back right after this.
How's your seed quality? What should you treat with? What about herbicide carryover and environmental concerns? Spring is here, and you've got a lot of things to think about in regards to your pulse crop. The Pulse School on Real Agriculture has information and advice for all these questions and more to help you navigate this season. Brought to you by BASF. Pulse School episodes are available at pulseschool.com, realagriculture.com, or as a podcast on your favorite streaming service. Download the latest episode today.
I'm Lyndsey Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomists, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomists with me, Lyndsey Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
We're winding down this week's episode of RealAg Radio as we head into the July 1st Canada Day long weekend. Looking forward to it. A great celebration of Canada that is happening on Monday. So I'm going to be spending the entire day at watching a doubleheader for the Western Canadian Baseball League, which is going to be fun, watching my oldest son. So hopefully everybody's got some plans. Maybe some of you will be finishing spraying or trying to get some spraying done if it is a calm day out there. Kelvin, Heppner, Lyndsey Smith of Real Agriculture for the RealAg Issues Panel, along with myself, Shaun Haney, the host. Okay, Kelvin, sorry, I cut you off there as we were going into break. We were talking about Cereals Canada and the interview with Dean Dias, their CEO. You get the last thought here.
I was just going to say, reiterate again that it's important that the grassroots, if this project's going to go ahead, it's important that the grassroots understands the story of why it's needed. And I'm not sure that has been executed on yet. And I think Dean was trying to make the point that the funds for this gate project, the $100 million, will be raised through a separate capital campaign because he doesn't want it to be coming out of, or other members to get the impression it'll come out of their membership contributions for an annual operating budget kind of thing. So it'll still be the members that are of Cereals Canada, the grain companies and farm groups, including the provincial crop commissions that will be asked to fund this. But I think that's why the emphasis is on having a separate capital campaign. And that's where I think usually when you launch a capital campaign, you try to have a certain percentage of those funds already committed, at least on a handshake type agreement. And I'm not sure that they're at that point of having the funds committed. So it'll be interesting to see how the fundraising process goes here, especially as government included. Government is expected to step up with a bunch of money as we see tightening of government purse strings at the same time.
Yeah. I want to talk about the Cargill strike in Guelph. And finally, after 4 weeks, it seems now, Lyndsey, like the messaging is sort of becoming a little bit more clear from some of the groups like Beef Farmers of Ontario. Like, this is a problem. It needs to be fixed, and it's really impacting the industry and for sure, primary producers.
Yeah, so, we did see sort of a united front from the cattle value chain across Canada come out earlier this week saying, calling for action on this to resolve this strike. It started May 27th, so we are now a full calendar month into this. And this it really does have a huge impact on the Ontario cattle market, of course, in that it is the majority of cattle that are processed in this province happen in that plant that has been shuttered now for an entire month. So we did see Beef Farmers of Ontario, the Canadian Cattle Association, coming out and urging some movement on this. Now, we also saw, and this was, as I alluded to earlier, there were 3 different Agricor announcements. So Agricor handles the crop insurance as well as the risk management program for cattle producers as well in the province. And so we did get news yesterday that the Ontario government, through Agricor, had actually bumped up the reporting. So in order to get more money to cattle producers sooner, Agricor has actually changed the July 31st reporting deadline to July 15th. So you now will be able to report your first 2 quarter sales earlier, which means you should get your payout earlier. And they are temporarily waiving that 30 months or less requirement for cattle. And that, of course, is to account for the fact that there may be cattle on feed that have had to stay on feed and are going to age out of the program. Typically, they're going to temporarily waive that in certain circumstances. They do say, though, of course, cull cows are not eligible for RMP, for risk management program, so that does not change. But that's a key difference that was announced this week and incredibly important for cattle producers. And Agricor also says that they are willing to work on a case-by-case basis for producers who are struggling with cash flow right now. And so they're asked to contact Agricor with any questions or any issues that they may be having to see if they can adjust premiums. Premiums for the RMP program are due in July as well. So that's why this comes up at the same time. So definitely starting to see, not just some changes to programming, but also the beef value chain become much more vocal on this issue of this plant being closed for this amount of time. I'm actually I really am surprised it has gone on this long and that we haven't seen either louder voices or any sort of intervention on this one, because this is pretty major for the cattle industry here in Ontario. Yeah,
for sure. It's concerning, and there's only so much cattle that can go to Pennsylvania or move into other smaller plants. This is a significant plant from a kill perspective for the Ontario beef industry.
If I could, WestJet has now threatened 2 different strikes in a week, and neither of them happened because the government intervened immediately because it was going to mess with people's Canada Day long weekend. Okay? Yeah. So I just got to draw some parallels here. Yeah. I want to see my family too and all, everybody, but we have a cattle plant that has been closed for a month and nobody's done anything about it.
Where are packer margins right now?
Well, that's a good question. Shaun, you would know that.
They're negative. They are, based on my understanding. But what do you think that has anything to do with the government not stepping in, Kelvin?
No, I don't know, because the government would care about its voters, not just one company. But I do wonder if that's why there isn't more pressure from the employer in this situation.
Interesting.
They don't mind being closed, you mean?
Yeah. Canada is a land of strikes. It's just, and we're...
Unless it's airlines, apparently.
Well, apparently
We can't mess with anybody's holiday plans.
we still have our two major railways that is still potential there, and there's a big crop out in the field as of right now. There's going to be some grain to haul. So the last thing that this area of Canada can afford, and quite frankly the whole entire country can afford, is for those two railways to go on strike here potentially in July.
If I'm a union leader, that sounds like leverage. And also unions don't want to mess with people's long weekends either. So that's also,
I think, livelihoods are fine. Long weekends, no. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Kelvin, cool. Tiff Maklem was in Manitoba this week meeting with some farm groups and also industry representatives. What exactly was going on there?
Yeah, well, Bank of Canada governor was in Manitoba, and I guess post-pandemic now they're trying to get him out more in meeting with industry in different sectors across the country. And so he was in Manitoba meeting with different groups, chambers of commerce, I believe. And he also had a meeting. It was put together, facilitated by Keystone Agricultural Producers. It was not announced ahead of time. It was even what they talked about in the meeting isn't really supposed to have left the meeting room, as of course what the Bank of Canada governor is thinking about and things like that can move markets. It's significant, but we have learned a few of the different topics that were discussed. They talked about temporary foreign workers, the importance of that, and how the recent changes have created major headaches for our meat processing sector across the country, and how that uncertainty is not good for the competitiveness of Canada's meat sector. And of course, one of the counterpoints to that is that we have a housing crisis in the country. So one of the maybe constructive thoughts that came out of this meeting was that perhaps the TFW program could be better geo-targeted to parts of the country where labor is needed and there isn't a housing cost crisis. There was also talk about trade competitiveness, infrastructure investments, the impact of red tape and on approvals, and carbon tax on our grain transportation system, for example, on our seed industry. And so a lot of also some discussion about the importance of China, as the Canadian government needs to, the U.S. is putting pressure on Canada to pick a side when it comes to China versus U.S. on trade. And so I'm sure the Bank of Canada governor is interested in how important that Chinese export market is for Canadian agricultural goods in terms of the impact on the economy if Canada becomes we've seen it on electric vehicles lately. We are seeing more positions against China, and so that could potentially have implications for Canadian ag exports, as we've talked about on the show before. And it sounded like the Bank of Governor was curious about that as well. And we also learned that he likes eggs for breakfast. He was fascinated. He was down at the Glenley research station where Manitoba egg farmers have a new research facility and display, and so he got a taste of what it looks like in an egg operation as well as a hog operation as well. So cool to see the Bank of Canada governor learning about primary industry, and what happens, the importance of agriculture to the Canadian economy.
The other thing, the last thing we found out, well, it wasn't the last thing. The last thing we have time for is Bill Greuel, who is CEO of Protein Industries Canada. Release came out yesterday that he is leaving that role and is going to be going over to be the Deputy Minister of Agriculture in Saskatchewan. So Bill lives in Regina, so he will not have to move for that. But congratulations to Bill Greuel. He's always made himself accessible as in his time as CEO of Protein Industries Canada. And of course, there's Canada. He's been a big part of Canada, Western Canada, trying to build itself as a major player in the plant protein processing sector, along with some related technologies related to protein. So congratulations to Bill on that. Hey, Kelvin, Lyndsey, we're out of time. Kelvin, have yourself a great weekend.
Thank you. Everyone else as well.
And Lyndsey, try to stay dry out there in Ottawa.
Yeah, thanks. And happy Canada Day, everybody.
That is right. Happy Canada Day to everybody listening here to RealAg Radio. Thanks so much for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio. And we'll, of course, chat again next week. Cheers, everybody.